Hennessy to dangerously delicious.
What's up,
Dude,
man?
so happy to have you on here, brother. Hopefully, I didn't screw it up after you came in clutch and saved me here, but I had made 4 events and deleted them all, and I had to make a new one. So
Yeah, no, we're live right now. I've got it pulled up on LinkedIn over here. So
awesome, awesome. Hopefully, I can also see the chat in here too.
yeah,
Okay,
so if you go over on the right hand side of the screen,
yeah,
I don't know what you have over there, but it'll say chat,
yeah,
graphics, and
yep.
captions. If you put it on chat, um,
Okay, so I don't need to do chat overlay.
you don't have to. I don't ever do it, but you can. And
Got
like, uh, you can click on my comment that I just put in. It'll put it on screen. So if somebody comes through here and you want to recognize them or whatever, you can click on the comments and they'll show up on screen. There you go.
Okay, all right, sweet.
Yeah, man.
Can you do?
Can I
Well,
what?
sweet, dude. Let's get started.
Yeah.
Let's
Yeah.
let's get started. Let's get chatting. So, the big thing I want to know, and maybe, well, for anyone who comes on or listens later, tell us about you. Tell us about Chris. Give us some backstory,
Um. Once
other than
upon
having an amazing beard. Like,
a
we can just throw you right into Lord of the Rings right now, bro. You're ready to rock and roll with that beard.
right.
Uh,
Yeah, man. Where do I even start? I got on LinkedIn. I kind of give you the most recent history first. I got on LinkedIn about a year and a half ago as a way to try and find business for um, like my day job, which is I work for an electronics recycling company. I still do that. The live stream production's a side hustle right now. Hopefully, when it'll grow, where I can do that full time. Got on LinkedIn looking for business. Found out real quick that when I would make work related posts, they would not perform nearly as well. So I didn't have as much fun with them because the interaction wasn't there. So let me put my earbuds in. So I got bored with it and started just posting for fun. Found live streaming. And just started. I created a show just to kind of. Hang on, let me do this. There you are. Just to kind of like bring people onto my network that I thought were doing cool things and just hang out with them. Find out what they do. Almost treated it like a networking call, a get to know you call live, and just absolutely fell in love with it. Fell in love with the community building aspect of it. You know, there'll be people, uh, especially if you do it consistently at the same time, the same day every week. People will start to learn that Mark goes live at 6:30 Eastern every Monday
yeah,
night, right?
yeah,
Mm. There'll be people show up in the comments every week supporting you, but they'll also be like having a party with each other in the comments. Like they'll
yeah,
forget you're even there, right? And so I fell in love with the whole community building aspect of it. It started taking off, and I started to see how it was such a great way for especially like coaches and solopreneurs, really for anybody, but that's kind of who I target, to showcase their expertise.
yeah.
You can get on and like you with your cooking, you can showcase your cooking and what you know how to do. And you've come up with a creative way to do that. Like live streaming from your kitchen on LinkedIn and YouTube is pretty freaking creative. Um, it's just a great way to show off your expertise, to
Sure.
get people to drive leads, to build a community for one thing of just amazing friends. I've met some of the most awesome people on LinkedIn in the comments of live streams. Um, yeah, let's party in the comments, Kevin. I love it. Um,
Yeah.
just
So when
absolutely.
was like when did you get started with the live streaming? Like, when did you start all that?
It was the end of March of last year.
Okay.
So a year and 3 months ago, 4 months ago. Um, and just like I said, I fell in love with it. So I began to look for ways to make it better.
Okay.
You know, I went back and watched some of my early live streams not long ago, and they were definitely cringeworthy. Like you could tell, man, I was lost. I didn't have a clue what I was doing, but I just kind of persevered and pushed through it, which is kind of what led me into doing, the producing and the training people too.
Sure.
So people wouldn't have to go through the learning curve that I went through.
Yeah, I mean, I think super. Like I said, I mean, you came in clutch in the last what 10 minutes before the show was all up. So, like, I'm pretty sure we had a whole bunch of people on saved, and now they're probably like, "What the heck?"
Yeah, they're
all deleted, and yeah.
But you don't know what you don't know. You know what I mean?
Yes, for sure.
And there's absolutely no shame in that whatsoever.
Yeah, no, I'm glad you were able to do that too. I mean, that was legit.
Yeah.
That was awesome. Yeah, I mean, I think it's super cool, right? Like that you found this, kind of fell into it, right? And now you're blowing up, dude. Right? Like I keep seeing more and more on my LinkedIn, and I've got what 5,000 plus connections, and I keep seeing like similar people like bragging about you, and I mean, you're blowing up, and it's been what, a short amount of time, and I've only been connected with you for like 4 or 5 months, and you've just taken off, dude. So it's super cool. It's awesome to see.
This year is really blown up. A lot of it has to do with the consistency. Like I said, last year I was kind of tailoring. I'll answer you in just a second, Bernard, as soon as I say this. I was kind of tailoring the times and days of my streams to my guests.
Yeah.
So I was everywhere, right? Like I was one week I'd be on a Monday, the next week I'd be on a Friday at different times, trying to get it worked out. And I realized real quick that I was running myself ragged doing that, trying to keep up. I was married at the time, so I was running my wife ragged because she couldn't ever keep up with when I was going to be home and when I wasn't, because I live in the country and I do all my streaming from my office at work in town where the internet is good. So once I set it up at a time that was consistent on the same day every time or same day of the week at the same time, it blew up because people now they know Chris is live on Mondays at 7, which I will be live right after we get done here. I will be live with I'll be live too, so I'm gonna do a back-to-back.
And you're Central Time, right? So you're an hour behind.
I'm Central Time, yeah. So it'll be at 8 Eastern.
Gotcha.
So Bernard, I have 2 different shows. I do one every Monday at 7 Central, 8 Eastern. And I still do it the same format as I did whenever I started out. I bring cool people on, or people that I think are doing cool things, and we just have a conversation about whatever. Sometimes there's a topic, sometimes there's absolutely no topic, and we sit there and laugh and cut up the whole time. And then the second show I do every other Wednesday at 7 Central, 8 Eastern, and it's called Ending the Stigma. And that one is really very topical. I mean, topic focused. We focus on the stigmas associated with people that have been in prison. We'll bring people on. I have a co-host for that show. His name's Nathan. We'll bring people on that have either been in prison and gotten out and are doing good, or somebody that may work for an organization that helps people coming out of prison, or maybe the family member of someone who's been to prison, just to kind of normalize the fact, it doesn't, and I hate to use normalize because, we don't want to normalize doing wrong, right? But normalize the fact that people have messed up, paid for what they've done, gotten out, and, are treated like a second-rate or third-rate citizen by society. And a lot of times it ends up leading to recidivism because they can't get a good job, so they go back to what they were doing, and they end up right back in prison, and it's a vicious cycle. So we just kind of focus on that, not really always offering solutions, but just having open and honest conversations about it, just to try and open people's eyes to the fact that, and I've been to prison. I did 8.5 years almost, and have been out for a little over 6 now. And my co-host has been to prison too. So just to kind of normalize it, something like 1 in 3 people in the U.S. have been to prison. So, the chances are you get 100 people in a room, 33 of them have been to prison.
Yeah. I mean, it's super, I think it was super cool. And I don't know, I've watched a bunch of your shows, right? I'm always trying to pop in there and comment, at least leave
Mm-hmm.
my 2 bits, right? So
Yep.
I think one of the coolest ones, right? Like, I think what set it all off was watching you do
The
prison
cooking.
cooking.
Yeah. And that was a
Dude,
blast, man. That was such a fun show to try and figure out how to do it from my desk, at
yeah,
work,
that was impressive. I mean, I definitely would have had a heart attack eating that. I
Oh,
mean, but it looked so stinking good.
it was
Like,
awesome.
I
And I
just
ate
think
the
about like,
leftovers the next day for lunch.
imagine what spaghetti ramen mashup with nachos and chili and like,
Yeah, man.
man, it was something. But that was like
T-
that's what kind of like spurred this. I was like, dude, that was
yeah.
super fun to watch. It was super fun to comment, and obviously for me, anything food
Yeah,
gets me
anything with
going,
food.
right?
Yeah, yeah,
Anything food gets me going, and that's what
yeah,
I'm hoping at some point to get like Erica Rank on here talking brodo and like anything food's gonna get me talking and
yeah.
yeah, man. So that
So,
kind of brings you up to the next, man. Like, talk to me. What are the Chris Hennessy favorite foods here?
um, Erica was a guest, I think, on my second show. She was she's absolutely amazing. Like, you're gonna have a blast with her if you get her on. She's so cool. Um, so ask me the question again because I geeked out on Erica Rankin.
Yeah, I mean, I understand that, but that's like I said.
Yeah.
Let's talk Chris Hennessy favorite foods, man.
Favorite foods. Okay,
Yeah,
so man, I don't even know where to start. Like, I love any kind of grilled beef or any kind
okay,
of beef. Period. Like, I am a beef fanatic. I'm, not so much on chicken or anything like that, but like fajitas, steak,
all right.
anything like that. I'm just an absolute fool for. Like, people ask me all the time. That's kind of a normal thing to ask someone. What's your favorite food? Dude, I love food. Like, it's hard for me to even nail down what my favorite food would be.
Yeah, so I
Um,
started to go categories, man, because like I said, dude, I'm I call myself hubby for a reason, right? But
yeah,
I gotta categorize it, right? Even with desserts, right? Same thing. You got to go with your chocolate desserts, your fruit desserts.
yeah,
You gotta categorize it into separate things, man.
yeah. You
Like,
have to, because like people ask, "What's your favorite pie?" Well, what do you mean? No, it's my favorite pie. Like, are we talking fruit pies or cream pies or like what's what's the what are we talking here? Because chocolate and coconut
exactly,
cream pie don't go in the same as a fruit pie. Like, how do
absolutely.
you pick? Or a pecan pie?
Exactly. Well, and it's totally different profiles, right? Like, I mean, you can be talking any of that kind of stuff because I've been doing, I've been a professional pastry chef since 2009.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, you get talking about any of that kind of stuff. I love it, right? And there's just such endless possibilities when it comes to pies. And I think that's one of the things that's so fun about doing desserts live. I mean, one, the challenge of screwing up, right? Like,
Right, right,
like,
right.
dude, because like that's what people don't show you, right? I mean, when people do these shows, and you watch them like on Netflix or anything, like, dude, they have screwed up 20,000
Oh
times
yeah,
and they've edited it and edited it and edited it
yeah.
and edited it. And it's like, dude, can I actually not screw this up and like do this
Right,
live and still make this
right.
look good? So thankfully, right, it hasn't been too bad. I've only had 2 episodes, but it hasn't been horrible. But even with that, right, like, I think it's just a fun challenge. And then I don't
Yeah,
think people understand like a lot of this stuff is just it's not difficult to do once you know how to do it,
right.
right? Like it just comes down to like technique, right? And I think because I went to pastry school, right? So I went to Le Cordon Bleu,
Okay.
and really they teach you like the big things they're teaching you are sanitization, right? Like they teach you about food,
Right.
and in pastry specifically, right? Like I went into baking and patisserie to become a pastry chef. They're teaching you food combinations like
Mm-hmm.
wine, cheese, chocolate, different desserts and flavor pairings. Um, but more specifically, they're teaching you like how to screw up and how to recover, and then how to hide mistakes. Like that's it, man. Like how do we make these mistakes and then hide them? Like every good cake artist will tell you, like, dude, the difference between a really good one and a really, well, I shouldn't say bad one, but an okay one It's a really good one, knows how to cover up the mistakes, right? Like you don't scrap an entire cake. We just cover it up, right? So
right.
fondant, like if anyone's ever used fondant before, fondant's a beast. It is not fun to work with. It's so delicate. It'll rip if it's too thin. If it's too thick, no one wants to eat it because it's too sugar filled. So you just have like so many different things. So what really happens though is the bottoms always look funky. Then you just cut out a strip and wrap the bottom so it looks perfect, right? So it's all just about covering up the mistakes and learning to get through those. But like I said, I think the biggest thing in school is you learn technique, right? And
Yeah.
it's like, hey, I've seen 1,000 of these desserts on TV. I've seen them made by other people. How are they doing them? And that's what you learn is that technique, right? Like, I mean, macarons, right? Like that's what I just did on this last one. I just showed everyone how to do it. It's not super difficult, but it's one of those desserts where people are like, holy crap, how are you doing this, right?
Yeah.
Because I think everyone gets stuck in pies, right? And one of my biggest thing is like I wanted to change the narrative on what desserts can be, right? Like it's just not pies and cake and cupcakes, right? Like that's not what desserts are, right? That's what most of us grew up on, so that's what we think desserts are.
Yeah.
But then there's such a vast world out there of different crazy desserts, or just making your own, man. And so like that's my goal on that show is to just show people the technique and then what's possible, and that you can screw up and still recover because I'm doing that constantly. So but yeah, man. So I mean, I think too, like, desserts. Talk about, I really wanted to bring you on and talk about like the prison stuff you guys did too, because like I said, dude, I was hooked on that show. But like what desserts did you guys have to make that you couldn't buy in say commissary or whatever?
Oh my God, we made all kinds of stuff. So we made a cheesecake that was really freaking amazing, and I talked about it on the cooking show I did. I actually brought the stuff home to make it with for my family because I've been telling them about it for years, and it's hard for you telling about. When I tell you this, you're going to see it's hard to kind of wrap your head around it. So they sold individual squeeze packs about this big of cream cheese on commissary. So it was like, the Velveeta cream cheese of Velveeta version of cream cheese, pasteurized processed food spread. It was not real cream cheese because you did not have to refrigerate it. But it tasted pretty much like cream cheese. So powdered milk. The powdered milk they sold was very granular and not powder. We tried the powdered milk out of the kitchen and it did not work. Which is why I brought the powdered milk home from prison because I wanted to make sure it would work. So you get like 3 packages of powdered milk. And then we'd usually use like they sold little single serving electrolyte mix like Gatorade. And we'd put like 3 or 4 orange or lemon lime or mix them together or whatever, 3 or 4 of those in there. You could also, instead of using that with water, you could also use like Big Red. Some people used Big Red. I preferred the tarty, fruitier flavor of it.
Sure.
So I used the electrolyte drink mixes, add just a little bit of water at a time until it's thick like cake batter.
Sure.
Then you put in about, whatever you want to, 6 to 10 little packets of that cream cheese. Stir it all up. But before that, I got ahead of myself. Before that, you get a package of cream cookies, like vanilla cream cookies or duplex cream, whatever you wanted. It didn't matter. You break open every cookie, scrape the cream out of it, and put it aside. Till you have a bowl full of cookies. You crush the cookies down into powder, add water till it gets like cookie dough.
Sure.
Just a little bit at a time. And then you spread it out in your bowl. And the bowls we had were pretty decent size. Spread it out in the bowls till it makes your crust. You do that first. Then you make the filling out of the powdered milk and the cream cheese. Pour that in there. Let it sit for a couple hours. And then you can make your topping out of whatever you wanted to. You could get that cream from the cookies, add a drink mix or two to it, and it would be really, really tart because it would be so concentrated in that little bit.
Sure.
Stir it up and spread it on top. Some people just use strawberry jelly. Some people would melt down a candy bar and put it on top. I always just used that cream from the cookies, and I might add another cream cheese or two to it, and then add, a couple of the drink mixes and stir it up and put that on top. So it was really tart.
Yeah.
And it sounds weird, man, but that stuff, you let it sit for a couple hours and you could cut it just like a cheesecake, and it would be firm and gooey and just absolutely amazing.
Yeah, it sounds like a no-bake cheesecake, right?
It's exactly what it is. Yeah, basically, yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome, dude. Like that's the stuff that's so cool, right? Like, is the ingenuity part of it, trying to figure out like how to create those things with next to nothing, right? Like, because you don't have the kitchen utensils or the ovens or any of that kind of stuff at your disposal. So, I mean, it's impressive, man. That's the stuff. That's just
like we would make, and here's another one that we used to like to do too. Everything starts off almost the same. You get a package of cookies, scrape the cream out of it, put it aside, crush it all up, add water till it was like dough. And then we spread it out flat and get a cinnamon roll or a honey bun or something, break it up, mix it with that cream and some cream cheese, put it out in the middle of that spread out dough, roll it up, put it in a chip bag, put it down in your hot pot. And it would never just like really cook, but everything in there would get warm and gooey, and it would just melt on the inside. And you dump that sucker out and you ate it hot, obviously, because it'd just be this gooey mess of like a molten lava cake almost. Like it was amazing.
That sounds amazing.
It was so good, dude. It was so good.
It's crazy is like when you were even showing that stuff, right? Like it's basically, so for people that don't know, right? Like when you're putting this stuff in the hot water and basically it's that cooking version, it's called sous vide, right? Like,
sous vide, yeah.
Yeah. So you're dunking in a big thing. And normally, right, for people like me, when you throw in the sous vide stick, that's just a heater, right? And just heats that water and boils it up. And yeah, so it's so crazy. You wouldn't even think about it, I think, unless you're there, right? And you're just like, dude, what can we use to cook this, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, dude, man, like I said, the innovation, like you would think that people like coming out, like after going through like all the innovation you come through, like engineering would just be like, hey, let's sign you guys up, man. Like if you in here and you're like, hey, what did you do? Were you a cook in there? Okay, we're going to be an engineer coming out of here, right? Like, what did you make in there? Like, let's go into engineering or maybe into culinary. Like, go straight into it, right? Because that's the stuff that's just awesome, man. Yeah, I love it, dude. I mean, it's so funny too because, like, for me, I am one of those people. Like, when I go to cook or when I go making something, right? Like, I love having my tools. I've got like a big old literal toolbox just full with all my equipment, right? And then the different items that I use. And it's like, dude, I would almost be lost without it, honestly.
You'd figure it out though. Like
you have to. I mean, that's the thing, right? Like it's worth figuring out because the end result is amazing. So it's worth figuring it out, right?
I mean, we'd make tamales. Same thing. Like, everything starts off the same. Like I said, crush up corn chips like Fritos.
Yeah.
That's your maize. Add a little water till it's thick.
Yeah.
And then you just cut a piece of like a soup packet, like a ramen soup packet, spread it out on that, fill it with whatever you want to, roll it up in that. And then you get a bunch of those together, put them all in a chip bag, and then put that chip bag down inside your hot pot and cook it for an hour, and then you put chili or whatever you want to on top of it. Like it's just, it's, and those were good too. And I'm starving now. Like I'm,
I know. Talking about it's making me hungry too, man. Now I'm here like, dude, I haven't had dinner yet.
Yeah, like, I haven't either.
Like having like food on these things, right? Like if I'm not gonna be eating, we need to be bringing the food on.
Yes.
Yeah, man. Yeah, no, that's super cool, dude. And I think you definitely would want to figure it out. And for me too, like, so I was telling people on the last one, on the last live show, like when you whip egg whites, you whip them to a stiff peak is what it's called, right? So you basically can put a spatula through them and they won't fall down, right? They'll stay up, stiff peak.
Right.
So in school, one of the things they do in school, before you're allowed to use any tools, like any modern tools, right? They give you a whisk and a steel bowl. You have to do this by hand and then hold it over your head upside down before they will allow you to use an actual electric mixer. So that's how they can tell.
It has to stay in the bowl.
Yeah. Yes. And that's how they can tell if you've done it, because if you get to stiff peak with the egg whites, it will stay in the bowl, right? Like you're holding it will stay in the bowl.
Okay.
But if you don't have it at stiff peak, it will absolutely fall on you. And we had, like, I think my cohort at the time, because it was like in the beginning, right? And then they allow you to use tools and everything else. So
yeah,
in the beginning, there was at least 12 people that just had egg falling all over their head, dude. It was awesome to see, man. But it's like, and then the thing is, and I get it, because like, dude, just try it one time. Like, you are exhausted between both of your arms. You're trying to use both. If you're not ambidextrous, most people are just making a mess with their left hand or right hand, whatever, you know, and there's just egg everywhere. But at the same time, you're just going and going and going. It's not like whipped cream, where whipped cream is even tough, right? But it's still way easier to do whipped cream than it is to do egg whites. Like egg whites is like a legit by hand, like a straight 20 minutes of whisking. And you're just like, dude,
that's a lot.
So I got it. Like I was more, like some people were just tired, so they just did it because like that was the test. Like they had to do it. They just got egg all over them. But like I didn't want the egg, so I'm just like, dude, I just kept going until I was like, all right, I'm confident this is gonna stay. But yeah, dude, I think that was a good way to do it too, right?
Heck yeah, it made you learn.
They taught everybody that, right? Like we weren't allowed to use the modern conveniences until we went through this and used all these, right? Like the normal tools. So it was cool. I mean, it was the same thing. Like now they've got ice cream machines. You've got crystallization machines to make like tempered chocolate. So, but the way we learned to make tempered chocolate, right, was by hand, of course, right? So it's what they call seeding, when you got to take chocolate to 120 degrees, right? Not over 120 degrees Fahrenheit, add it or to 115. Between that, if you go over, it's too hot. It'll actually ruin it. It ruins the crystals. And then you're taking them to like a level 5 crystal, right? But how you do it is like on a big piece of marble is a really good way to do it. But you'll take it to 120 degrees, heat it, and then you're going to take it down in temperature by adding chocolate to it. So it's called seeding, and you got to take it down to 89 degrees, and you're smoothing it out and rubbing it out so it cools down. And then you're bringing it back up in temperature and then back down again, right? And like you had to learn it by hand to do it on marble, right? And so like it's a pain and you can really easily screw it up. Yeah. And that's the thing you don't want to do, right? Like the reason you temper is to get that shine, that snap is the most important, is the snap, right? Mm-hmm. But the shine's important too. But when you're building chocolate sculptures and you don't have a tempered chocolate, it comes to crumbling down.
Yeah,
because it's aerated or overdone, right? You didn't get the crystallization, so it comes to crumbling down. And so that was what we had to do, right? Like first thing they teach you is you have to learn to temper by hand, and then your first exam was now you're going to build a chocolate box, right? And so our boxes had to have these decorative things that stood up. It was like 4 thin pieces that stood up, you know. And they stood up 6 inches, and then you had a box underneath, and right, like any of those fall down, you failed, right? So, yeah, man, it was like that's the game. Crazy. It comes down to the technique, right? And I think that's what I'm trying to show people on my show is just this is the technique, right? Like you can do this, or like the tips and tricks pieces, right? Like, dude, there's so many little things you can do to elevate that game. Right. And I think it's with any art, right? Mm-hmm. If you know the techniques, like with drawing, right? Like I took an art class one time, and the first thing they have you do is draw the person sitting across from you. It's embarrassing, right? Like, cause you suck at drawing. You don't want to, you don't know anything. That. And you're like, dude, I don't want you to see this. Right. This is embarrassing. This is not, I promise you look better than what this picture is. Right. So, but you know, and then at the end of the class, they then have you draw that same person again and see the difference of what you've learned through that entire course. and it's dramatically different, right? Like it actually looks like them. And I think it's the same concept here, right? It's just learning those techniques and then broadening people's minds to what can be in a dessert. Like, I think too, like with desserts, it comes down to components, right? Like the more little components you have to put it all together, that's how you really elevate it and exaggerate it and then blow people's minds with like, holy crap, this is a dessert. Like, what made you think of this, right? And I have this one dessert. It's a white chocolate and vanilla bean frozen mousse top of a brownie crust, and it's got dark chocolate stripes. And then what I do is I have a special recipe. I take frozen peaches and apples, and I cook them down with brandy and brown sugar and cinnamon and spices. And cook them down till they're basically like a little bit toothsome, right? And then cook that rest of that sauce down into a nice thick syrup, right? And then you put those hot peaches and apples over that frozen mousse, and then pour that hot sauce over top of that. Do some like nice sugar pieces or Tweedle cookies or whatever, man. Best dessert I've ever made, right? And
holy crap.
It's like that elevates something, right? Like that's not something people are going to normally have, you know?
And they're going to stop at the chocolate mousse, at the white chocolate mousse on the brownie. Like that's going to, or the, you know what I mean? Like that might be as far as they go.
Exactly. So I'm trying to show them, right, like the other components of it. And I was thinking about that because with, you're trying to fit into like, hey, if you're going to live stream and it's an hour, right? Like a lot of baking things are beyond that. So like, I'm pre-baking things to show. I'm like, okay, we did all this. Throw it in the oven. Now I'm going to take what I did yesterday and show you how to decorate it, right? Or do it
just like they do on a cooking show.
Exactly. Otherwise, they never be able to see the finished product, right?
Yeah,
exactly. And so that's what I'm trying to do is like get down there because I want people to understand, like, dude, I can blow your freaking mind with desserts. Like that's what dessert should be, right?
Yeah.
And I think obviously cooking shows nowadays, there's a bajillion of them out there, right? And it allows you kind of to see all the different aspects of it. And it's really getting strong with desserts too, which I love because obviously that's why I went pastry. But I think now for me, because it's live, it's a totally different animal, right? So it's not pre-recorded and then shown, it's live. And it's like, oh, well, this could go sideways.
And you're having to put a lot of effort and prep work into this. For a live show, a live cooking show. I can't even imagine what kind of prep work you have to do, especially like make a whole nother batch of this stuff the day before. So you have, the finished product to show.
Exactly. I mean, the cool part about it is I love it, right? Like I love
you're going to eat it anyway.
Aspect of this. And it's like, at the end of the day, if I won the lottery, like this is what I would do for fun, right? Like if I was going to retire, quote unquote, right? And not work, like this is what I would do is open up a little invite only restaurant style thing where I just get to go crazy with my imagination and desserts. Right. And that's what I want. Like, that's the dream, obviously. And it's just like, that's the fun stuff though.
Yeah.
Right. Like, because pastry is art, right? Because baking, pastry, all this stuff is art, pure art. If you can get someone that's creative or just let their mind go, dude, it's so much fun. It's so much fun. Like the stuff that people can come up with. Now, don't get me wrong, I've come up with a lot of garbage. And it's like, that's in the early phases, right? Like you got to test that out as you're get into the career, right? Like you got to get those out. And like sometimes you're like thinking of something, you're like, hey, these flavors sound good. But then when you actually put them together and they're not good, like, dude, I've had so many screw ups too. Like I talked about the lemon water muffins. I remember the first time because I was like, okay, I went gluten-free, right? And super hard to do as a pastry chef, right? To go gluten-free. Right. And so I'm like, this is the first ever time I've dealt with it. And my wife and I are like, well, let's try and make some gluten-free muffins. And I'm like, dude, I can do that for sure, right? Like that's the pride talking, dude. Every time pride
hold my beer.
Exactly. Every time pride comes out, you get slapped in the face. Your ego gets in check, right?
Yeah.
That's God. That's God saying to you, like, dude, come on. Like, come on, son. Like, and so I was using coconut flour, and the biggest thing that you face, right, when it comes to desserts is like, it's all chemical. right? So this is all science-based, right? It's all chemistry and what works with what. Well, the absorption level and the lack of baking that the coconut flour does versus like normal bread flour, cake flour, pastry flour, whatever, two totally different things.
Yeah.
And I did a 1-for-1. Yeah, it not only did it not bake, like we had it in for like 2.5 hours, and it was straight up lemon water muffins. And I'm just like, dude, like this just took me to a whole new level of humility as a pastry chef, because I'm like, I didn't. It's just one of those things, right? And it's like it was my own fault because I should have done the homework on it, and I didn't. I was like, yeah, it should be fine, right? It's flour. It's just to be a 1-to-1. Nope.
It's not.
No, it is not in any way, shape, or form. And like gluten-free as a whole, whew, man, it is so hard to get those ratios right because you have to have a mix, right? Like you've got to have xanthan gum, and it gives that chewiness. Like gluten, like xanthan gum is really like that gluten equivalent, right? It gives it that same texture as if you had developed gluten. And so like if you don't have xanthan gum, you're not going to get that. It's going to be this super, super dense stuff, right? Hey, Christine, welcome. I keep seeing Bernard said I would still eat the lemon water muffin
with cream cheese.
Yeah, dude.
So did you ever get the muffins right?
No, I never did because, well, the benefit is that nowadays they make a all-purpose gluten-free flour. So like it is a 1-to-1 substitute now, but that's because those flours are like, it's like an almond flour, tapioca, coconut with xanthan gum. It's like got all the mix. And so it's all mixed in there, right? So to worry about it. But this is like in the beginning, right? So like I think, I don't know how many years ago it was where like there was this huge push to go gluten-free, right? And to go more natural and to do all those things. And since that happened, it allowed for a lot of these people to create these products. Like, I mean, Erica Rankin, right? Perfect example. Her stuff is gluten-free, grain-free. Like her stuff is awesome. And it allows for that, right? Because people are asking for it now. And we're seeing like all these development of celiacs and everything else too, right? So I think now it's good. But no, back then I did not. I was so frustrated with myself and like my abilities. I was like, screw this. I'm never using this again. I'm not going to go coconut flour ever again.
Right.
And like for me too, because it's coconut, like I'm not a big coconut fan, which is really hard to be gluten-free and not be a coconut fan. But I've never been a coconut fan. I don't know what it is about the never been one to really like that. So I try to go almond flour. Like that's why I love macarons so much, right? They're gluten-free. It's egg whites and almond flour, right? They're super easy recipe. And once you know how to do it, super easy to do. That's like one of my favorites, right? Because you can make that dessert crazy all you want, right? Christine's got her baking tip of the day.
Yeah.
I love it. What does she got? Almond and coconut flour, swap butter for avocado oil, combine the dough together, turn into a cookie cake. I love that. That sounds delish.
Yeah, it does.
Kevin says lemon water muffin. Dude, guys, the lemon water muffins literally were lemon water. They did not come out of the pan. It wasn't like it didn't even absorb enough to bake enough to where it even had like a 1/4 inch of something to take out. It was stayed a liquid. And I don't even like I even like added just for my own edification, like more coconut or flour inside the existing baking water, and it literally baked nothing. Like it just it was literal water with a flavor of lemon poppy seeds. So it was like you couldn't like I mean, it was like a liquid muffin tin filled with a flavored water. And like there was nothing to take out, right? So yeah, I wish like that was one of the biggest growths. I wish it would have materialized into something. Hot water muffins. Yes, that's basically what it was hot water muffins. And it was, I mean, like I said, at least it was there, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's hilarious.
I wish I'll have to figure out, right? Like, so Christine keeps asking about when I can ship her some of the goodies, right? And I was like, dude, I don't know how well some of this stuff will travel. Like,
right.
without packaging, some of it could show up to you. Like, dude, have you seen some of your boxes from UPS and stuff? Dude, like, imagine food's in there. I don't think this is gonna come real
Right.
smooth. It really have to depend on what it was. Like, I was laughing. So I did just the other day, I did with like family and friends, I did like a charcuterie board. And I did like one of the charcuterie boards was like all fruit, chocolate dipped strawberries, chocolate dipped almonds, stuff like that. Right. And I was like, one of the things I wanted to add to it was truffles. And I was like, I want these beautiful truffles. In the literal 6 minutes from my car from the store to get home, dude, it melted the entire. I mean, like, it was laughable. I opened it up and my wife just started cracking up. You know, it was the funniest thing ever, dude. I was like, well, I'm not putting these on a plate because I want us to look pretty. Right? Like, I want it to look good. So I think, Christine, like, that's my issue is I want it to look good when it gets to you. And
Yeah.
it's gonna be, I'm like trying to figure out what I can send, right? Like, even gummies. I couldn't even send gummies because they'll melt, right? Like,
Yeah, you have to
melt,
send those
gummies
in like
melt.
December or January.
Yes, in the wintertime. That's when we can send truffles, right? So yeah. And I'm trying to figure out too, like, I think that's one of the things I gotta put up is another poll on what to make next, right? Like, what dessert should I make next? Do I get creative and just go with whatever? Like, you know what I'm saying? Or do I come up with something that people know that's fancy and people want to learn how to do it? I don't know, man. I'm trying to think of that one still. I don't have a dessert ready at the helm, so I got to think of it pretty quick. What do you got, Chris? What can you think, man? What do you guys have suggestions? What do you got, Kevin? What do you guys want to see on Monday?
Yeah.
I know. I was trying to think, man.
So many things, man.
There's so many things. And it's like, what do you want to know, right? Like, that you don't. What I really like, I think the bigger thing is, what do you guys not know how to do or not know how to do well? Where you're like, I really want to know how to do this well, right? What is that recipe? What did you have?
The one.
Oh, gluten-free chocolate chip cookies. I mean, we could do gluten-free chocolate chip cookies. I think too, like, I mean, cookies are always good, right? So the question is, because it's going to be on there, how do I jazz it up to make it crazy, right? Like, do I do chocolate chip cookies with bacon bits in it? Like, add that salt to that chocolate?
I'm trying to imagine it here.
Dude, so I could do chocolate chip cookies with bacon bits and then dip it in like a maple, right? Like a maple coating like they do on donuts. That could be really good. And that's something you'll never get anywhere.
No, you won't.
So another good one, actually, you could do the chocolate chip cookies with like cocoa dusted corn nuts.
And who the hell likes corn nuts, dude?
Dude, everybody likes corn nuts, man.
Oh.
Oh, they just add the salt. You're just adding
salt. Yeah, they added the salt.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Just gotta add that salt.
Yeah, I can
salt
see
is
that.
The enhancer, right? Salt is the flavor enhancer. If you don't got salt, everything's gonna taste bland, right? And that's whether it's desserts or savory. I was laughing too because someone was like, "Oh, you're a pastry chef. Can you even cook real food?" I was like, "Please, son." Like, you know when they tell people, they're like, "Hey, if you can't teach, you teach gym," right?
Yeah.
Like, that's what pastry chefs say about regular chefs. If you can't bake, you cook. I mean, that's what they say, right? Like, so we also, like, one of the cool things we did in school, we had a competition every year, right? It was the pastry students against the culinary students.
Yeah.
It was embarrassing. It was like when I went to school, they were 9 years running with pastry team winning. Like, and we won again. Yeah. Like, it was hands down, right? And it's just like, dude, because the difference of throw a little bit of this, throw a little bit of that crap, right? Like that's not going to fly when you come to desserts, right?
Right, because
like,
it's got to be, your ratios have to be right.
100%. That's why we weigh everything too, right?
Yeah.
Like that's why you have to weigh stuff, because if you don't weigh it, it's not going to be accurate or it won't be consistent, right?
Right.
You said salt plus gluten-free cookies equals salt bomb. I don't know. I don't know that recipe. I'd have to look at it, right? Like Christine, what you do though is you take out the added salt and you add the bacon in for the salt. And that way it combines still, so you're not doing a whole bunch of extra salt. Like you got to balance out those ratios.
Yeah,
and you got
I
to
can
take
see that.
Yeah, you got to take out.
Otherwise, you end up with some really, really salty chocolate chip cookies that
100%, and nobody wants that, right?
Yeah.
So, like, it's the same thing. Anytime I do caramels or chocolates or something, you got to add some salt, right?
Yeah.
Like my favorite thing I've ever done, honestly, were just dark chocolate bacon truffles. Like they have the perfect amount of sweet and salty, and it's amazing. And
that sounds amazing.
Then you pair that with a nice glass of red wine, like a Merlot or a Pinot, something a little bit fruitier to bring up those flavors. Like, oh yeah, right? Like, because you're trying to really develop the flavor, not just in the wine, but also in the chocolate.
Yeah.
And that's how you know, right? And like, one of the cool things too about chocolate, dude, and I'll go on forever about this stuff, man. Like,
I love it.
Like people don't understand the way to eat chocolate, right? Or chocolate has a very specific style of tasting, like wine and coffee. So like coffee, right? You're supposed to slurp it really fast and almost like percolate inside your mouth. That's how you're supposed to try it. And that's supposed to, right, give you that effervescence into your sinuses. And wine's a little bit different, right? But it's a swish, right? Well, chocolate, the first test with chocolate is you rub it between your fingers to get it to melt. And the reason is, as it melts between your fingers, you're getting that same aroma, the effervescence of that chocolate is coming off of it. And that's how you start with your chocolate tasting. And then it's the same thing where it should melt, right? You're just like wine, you're doing that twirl inside your mouth of that chocolate, so it's coating. And as it sits, it's melting in your mouth, right? And this comes back to the tempered chocolate. If you temper correctly, it melts at body temperature, right? So it will melt very quickly in your mouth, but you should have an enhancement of those flavors of that chocolate. You should start to taste the chocolate even more, right? And so it's like there's ways to do it. And then if you add a nice glass of wine in there, it should just be an explosion of awesomeness, right? Like, I mean, that's reality. It should be an explosion of awesomeness. It's amazing.
Yeah. Man.
But like, man, I could go on forever about desserts.
I love it.
It's just endless possibilities, you know?
Yeah, dude. And like, I'm a sweet-aholic anyway. Like I am, and it's terrible. Like to be a sweetaholic, I go looking for sweets when I get done eating, or even when I'm not. Like my go-to snack is going to be a sweet snack almost every time.
Heck yeah, brother. I'm in that same category, so I can feel that. So where are you at? Are you in Tennessee, Chris?
I'm in Texas.
Oh, you're in Texas.
Yep. I'm in Jacksonville, Texas.
Okay.
Yep. It's south of Dallas, southeast of Dallas, about 2 hours.
Gotcha. Okay. Yep. Okay. Yeah. I mean, at some point we'll have to get our bake on together, man. I mean, you can show me the prison skills, with how you sous vide everything, like, and I will bring my tools and we'll go that route, man. We definitely will cook up some major grub, and then we can do the easy stuff, which is the cooking part, right? Like
the cooking.
The stuff that everybody does, right? Like we'll do that. So Christine, you said white chocolate is the only thing you can eat?
Oh man.
I mean, I love white chocolate. Don't get me wrong. White chocolate is delicious. Like,
but it's not regular chocolate.
Well, and it's not chocolate technically, right? Like,
no, I was going to say it's not chocolate. It should not even be called white chocolate.
Yeah, it's just so. I mean, the reason people call it chocolate is because it is cocoa fat, cocoa mass, which comes off of the same plant, right? So it's from cacao. So like it is that. So, but it's just not chocolate. It's just not the chocolate part of it, right? Like it's not the actual cacao part of it. So
Right.
debate is white
No,
chocolate
Kevin.
really chocolate? It is not,
It's
Kevin.
not. It
There's
is
no
not.
debate.
It is not.
There's no
I'm not even a
debate on
chef,
it.
and I'll tell you, there's no debate.
There's no
I'm
debate.
not even a
I've
chef,
never-
and I will tell you that. I will argue you. Even if Mark said it was, I would argue you. I would die on that hill that it is not chocolate.
Dude, yeah. I mean, it's not. I mean, like I said, it comes from the same plant. However, they don't use the cacao nibs, the cacao bean, right? Like it's not.
Right.
It's not actual chocolate, right? They use
Right.
like the solids or the fat, right? And like
Yeah.
that's how you get that consistency. And to be honest with you, most chocolate that you buy and most white chocolate, quote unquote, you buy is not even chocolate anyway. Most of them are like palm oil or like
Yeah.
hydrogenated oils. Like they're not actually
Oh, yeah.
using like actual cacao, right? So
Right.
unless you're buying like really high end like baking level, like if you work in a kitchen, like Felklin is the brand that we used to buy for school. I love Felklin chocolate, man. This stuff is amazing. But like that's actual chocolate, right? So it is different, right? I don't get that reference, Christine, but maybe Chris does.
I don't get it either, but I like it.
I mean, I like it, but I don't get it. But I don't know who Paul Well is. I'll have to look that up. That's funny.
Yeah, I will too.
That is funny. So, Chris, I'll get back to you here real quick. I mean, man, like I said, I'll go on and on and on, but one of the things or questions that I had for you, like when it comes to just your shows, live streaming, and what brought you into this and everything else is like, what is the inspiration? Like, where do you find inspiration? Where did it come from? And like, was there a mentor? Like, how did that all manifest itself? Right.
So while I was streaming, I mean, not an official mentor per se until I kind of got into the producing side of it. And then like Gabe Leal and DJ Durante were probably two of the people that I burnt their DMs up the most. Travis Lochner was definitely an inspiration, just watching all the cool stuff he does. And, he did a series last year about how to be a producer and create stuff and do all that. And so I kind of hung on every word that he said. Still do, because he comes up with some really amazing stuff. Sure. But I've got a network of people that is just absolutely amazing. And the cool things that people do never cease to amaze me.
Yeah.
And so there's never any shortage of inspiration and guests and wanting to keep going. And because somebody's always doing something I want to know more about. Yeah. And, I stream for fun. It's not, my Monday night show is just a fun show. Like I said, it's hang out with friends. Wednesday night show is definitely more topic based and a little bit heavier. Sure. But, that's a subject that's near and dear to my heart because, I'm a felon too. So that inspiration is always there. But it's just the never ending. Like you see people all the time. You're like, man, they are doing some really cool stuff. I want to talk to them.
Yeah.
And that's really what it is.
And so who is like, I mean, I don't want to put you on the real spot.
Oh my God, here we go.
Who was it, man? Who was like that person, right? That just like blew your mind. It was an amazing, beyond anything. Like just to talk with them was so over the top, right? Like it was just blew your expectations.
Man, I've had a few of those. James Lorraine was one of them though. He was an absolute riot to have on the show. Just as funny as he is in his posts, he is 10 times as quick on the jump. I'm talking about just everything. And like, we got to watch him write a post right there in front of us. Like, he was over there researching and he whipped. I mean, it wasn't great according to his standards, but I mean, we got to watch him do that. He was pretty good. Who else have I had on that was just absolutely blew my socks off? I've had so many cool people. They all kind of start not really running together, but it's like, how do you figure out who makes the top 5? You know what I mean? Like, exactly. How do you do that?
I mean, yeah, I think that's tough too, right? Like
it is,
because even just their own followings or whatever else, but it's like, I think for me, it's like, what's going to keep you engaged, right? Like,
Yes.
what's keeping you engaged? What's driving that conversation? Is there a lull?
Yes.
Is there a dry spot? And like, if it is, like, how is that combated, right?
And
And
you're going to have those guests. There's some guests I've had on that it's just like pulling teeth. To you get 30 minutes in and you're like, how am I going to make this another 30 minutes, man? Like it's work. It's work. And then you get other guests on that you look up and it's been an hour and you're like, holy crap,
Yeah. Yeah, no, and I think that's like, I mean, right? Like for me, I will talk. Once we get on desserts, I'll just keep talking, right? So like that'll be my gap filler. I'll just go into desserts, right? Like, let's talk desserts. Let's talk alcohol, and boom, I'm good, man. I'll talk for an hour, right? So yeah, and I think it's too is like planning. I mean, really, especially if you're connected with them and can see their posts already, you can kind of plan based off of what they say or do or not active or active. Like maybe gauge that and go in with questions so you can fill that time. And also no yes or no's, right? Like talk about those open-ended questions so you can get in there. Yeah. Because I know one of the guests that hopefully I will have on here, I don't know when she'll be on, but I know she agreed to come talk. Her name's Margot Alvarez. If you're not following her, you should. She's like a 7-time CrossFit athlete, like whatever they call them, attendee or whatever. And she's also a vineyard owner, so she does wine. And I just had some of her wine, dude. Woo, it was amazing. But I know she's gonna come on here, and it's like, dude, she does so much stuff. Her posts are always lively. If they're not talking about wine, she's talking about exercising, so it's always lively, right?
Yeah.
So it just kind of gears you up for that. I knew this was gonna be a breeze, right?
Yeah.
Like if we're just talking about shooting the stuff, man, like
that's it. And those are fun,
right?
And that's what I tell people too that are thinking about getting into live streaming and they're worried about maintaining, bringing value every time. And I'm like, look, you got to build in. You have to build in some. I call them chill streams.
Absolutely.
Where you're not going to talk about you might talk about what they do, but like I did with Gabe a couple weeks ago. We just got on and cut up, kind of like what we did tonight. We just got on here and cut up and had a conversation. You have to build those in. One, it'll keep you sane and keep you going, but it makes it fun for your audience too, right?
Absolutely.
To have those fun ones thrown in.
Well, absolutely. And I think too, like when there's two aspects of it, right? Like we could be talking something super specific, and then it's really only going to speak to super specific, right? Like guests, where when you have a more broad perspective, or we're just going into the stuff that everybody can relate to. Again, that's why I did food for a reason, right? Like everybody can relate to food. There's nobody out there that can. Like, I mean, you show me the one person that's like, I don't really like food or drinking. It's like, okay, so there's no joy in your life. Like,
right, exactly.
Right. But like most people, like if you bring 1,000 people, there's probably not even one. And if there is one that doesn't like to eat or drink, like, okay, but like 1,000 of 999 of them love it. So I think it's just such a bond, and then it bonds us in a way that it's that universal language. It doesn't matter where you are, right? Like it all changes, the food changes, but it's a universal language of building relationships together. In
100%.
If you break bread with anybody, whether it's in this country or any other country, it's the same concept, right? Like it's something that's special. It's something that's not like you don't invite someone to dinner that you're like, dude, I don't like this person, right? Like it is something to bond people together, right? So people can grow together. Yeah. And I think that's why I went down this road too, right? Like that is what this is supposed to be. It's not just networking from a professional side. Obviously, that is a huge part of it, but it's also like that bonding of like, hey, man, we're still real people, right? Like, even though it's this, we're still real people. So
exactly.
But so we are at 59 minutes and such. So Chris, let's send you off here. So let's do a quick reference, kind of what you do, what your company's called, how people can get a hold of you, the whole 9 yards, because I want to blow you up there too. And guys, I hope you've enjoyed the show. Chris, it's been an honor to have you here. It's been
an honor to be here, man. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, me too. I was blessed to have you as my first guest, and you also saved
Yeah.
my butt in the beginning. So, Chris, send us out here, brother. Send us out, man. How
Yeah,
can people
man.
follow you?
They can follow me on LinkedIn. That's the only social media I'm on. I do have a YouTube channel. It's called So I Did a Thing. I don't promote it. I don't do anything with it. It's just a library. So if you want to subscribe to it, let me know. I'll send you the link. Otherwise, you may or may not find it even searching So I Did a Thing, because it's, like I said, I don't do anything to promote it.
Sure.
Name of my company is HIP Productions. Anything is Possible Productions. I do remote live stream production for people. I do live stream coaching and training, either as comprehensive or crash course. You know, I can do a crash course, or I can do like a 4-week comprehensive thing. And then I remote produce live streams for people, and all that entails from the tech side of it to updating events and making sure the events get posted. Can even go all the way to clipping parts out of the show and polishing it up and dressing it up and giving it back to you to post as content on social media, and polishing up the audio for you to publish as a podcast on wherever the hell you want to do it. So yeah, if you're interested in any of that or interested in live streaming, I'm always happy to get on a call with someone and give them some tips if they don't want to hire a producer or can't afford to hire a producer or whatever. Like, I will 100% jump on a call with you and be like, look, in 30 minutes, I'm going to give you everything I can in 30 minutes and get you going live. It's really as easy as about 3 clicks and you hit the go live button.
Yeah. And I can attest to that.
Don't pull the RTMP.
Yes, don't do RTMP if you're going to do Restream.
Yeah, or StreamYard. Just use the studio. It's so much better. It allows the comments to populate, your graphics and all that stuff will upload in there. And it makes the in-studio experience better, which also makes the show better.
Absolutely. Well, thanks again, Chris. Like I said, it was a pleasure having you here.
Man, I appreciate it, bro.
Absolutely. And guys, stay dangerous out there with your desserts. Throw those at me in the comments, whatever you want me to make next week or anytime. And yeah, looking forward to seeing you guys all next week.
Yep.
All right. Take care, Chris.
Appreciate it, y'all. Bye.
Thanks, guys.